Dart for Trice. That's Chase, and what a start for Cincinnati. And he has the football. Puts a move on. Bijan Robinson, he's going to hit. His first time into a touchdown. Gibbs out of the backfield right away. Oh, yeah, there's no question that he was grabbed. They got ridiculous. They got Gibbs one-on-one with Andrew Van Ginkel in space, and that was it. And this is, again, it's man-to-man. It's one-on-one, and he's underneath. He loses his balance. Block Bowers is one of those guys that has a huge... And this is...
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the fatboyz Dynasty podcast presented by the Fantasyholics Podcast Network, live on the Fantasyholics Podcast Network YouTube channel. I am Bo. That is Brant. Brant, it's been a few weeks since we've been able to make this work where we've both been able to get on and get together. It worked out in a way that we were able to do our My Guy episodes for the season. Obviously early takes, but My Guys for the season, get those out there and then come back this week refreshed, together with a chance to go through our respective top 10s at the running back position for people that are starting to enter draft season.
Yeah, absolutely. It worked out great for us. We got our My Guys out there, our early My Guys, but it's really not early. Like I hit on my episode, we're mid-July, like we're hitting the ground running. There is a football game in this month. Mm-hmm. Like at the end of this month, there's a real football game.
Well, semi-real.
Yeah.
Semi-real, yeah.
But yeah, we're in draft season, and now we got to really break down these top 10s. We went over quarterbacks, what'd you say, 2-3 weeks ago, and now we're going to hit the running backs and then hopefully continue out. I know my schedule has slowed down a little bit, so hopefully we'll be able to match up and actually be together a little bit more and actually get these out there. But yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to jump into these top 10 running backs. We did see the Fantasyholics. They put out their consensus running backs for redraft leagues this year. Well, now you're going to hear the Fat Boy side of our rankings here.
Yeah, and so I'm the biggest thing I'm interested in, Brant, is there was some subtle differences in quarterbacks, and then there was some big differences to where, you had a couple guys in your top 10 that I didn't have in mind, and vice versa. You had your flag plan on Justin Fields as a top 10 quarterback, if I remember. I'm super excited to get into this and see if there's just any massive differences between yourself and myself, and maybe even the consensus of the Fantasyholics. It'll be interesting to see how this episode pans out as it goes. Because again, although we do see each other every day at work and communicate multiple times a day, this is the first time we've seen each other's top 10s. So real reactions as they happen here. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fun. It always is. And then we always like to get together and right as we do hit that stride in August, we like to put our consensus ones out there as well. Mm-hmm. So this is just us putting ours together. There will be some things that change once once training camp officially opens. Najee being one of those. Unfortunately, you and me both thought that he was going to have a good chance to make a run at that starting job to start the season, and now he's almost going to have to play a little bit of catch-up now, starting on the NFI list. Or the pup. Yeah. He's on the pup. Sorry, I just read our NFI, so that's what's in my mind now.
Yeah, and again, starting out the season on the pup's never a great thing. We'll see how it goes for Najee and see what kind of role he can carve out. But without further ado, let's get into these running backs, Brant. Let's start at your 10. I'll go to mine, and we'll go back and forth until we ultimately get to who we think each of us is going to have the best season this year.
My number 10 is Devon Achane of the Miami Dolphins. I'm just not as high as him on him as the rest of the rest of the fantasy community is. I think that they're going to run a committee out. They went and got Alexander Madison out. They still have Wright, who's going to be coming back, should be healthy this year. I think he missed quite a few games. Oh, he only missed 2 last year. But I think, Tyreek's going to get back in it. Jalen Waddle, they're going to hopefully have Tua back to full strength. I think this team is not going to rely as much on A-Chain. I think it's going to be a good committee out there. I do think that A-Chain will be a top 10, as I do have him as number 10. I just don't trust a 188-pound, 5'9" running back to finish inside the top five or so like some other people do.
Okay. Yeah, we're copacetic there, Brant. I left him out of my top 10 altogether. I do think, obviously there's a path to success for Achane. Again, the problem is that, like you mentioned, Jalen Wright's a very similar skill set back to Achane. So we'll see how that plays out. And then you didn't even mention him, and I just feel so slighted by this. Ollie Gordon landed in Miami, just a year removed away from a very impressive college football season at Oklahoma State. And we all know, Brand, I fall in love with the Oklahoma State running backs. It just takes them a few years to get going. Look at Chuba Hubbard. But yeah, I could not get Devon Achane in there. I just do not believe in him. Like you said, I also think the passing game takes a huge step forward in Miami. I think Tua gets back to it. I think I've been telling as many people that'll listen to me to buy on Waddle as humanly possible. So yeah, for that reason and a few others, I won't go as far to be as blasphemous as to say I don't have him inside. Like, he'd be right there, like 11, 12 for me. I just could not get him quite to that point. All right.
Okay.
My number 10, Brant, is a guy that I'm sure you're going to have in yours someplace, is Josh Jacobs. And again, Josh Jacobs had a great year in Green Bay last season. I have him down here for very simple reasons, Brant. There's 74 mouths to feed in that offense. I know that there's not many running backs to take touches away from him. I'm just interested to see if he can stay healthy for a full 16-game slate. Interested to see if Green Bay can keep up with some of these other offenses. I think that NFC North used to be one of those divisions that was kind of like a rough and tough, bruised up division, kind of like the Pittsburgh Steelers division, or the AFC North. But I think it's to the point where you're going to see the Chicago Bears light up the scoreboard, the Minnesota Vikings light up the scoreboard. We know the Detroit Lions are capable. Detroit Tigers. Here we are in baseball. Detroit Lions are capable of lighting the scoreboard up. I think there's a chance that you see, a lot of Marshawn Lloyd this year in pass catching work. And Marshawn Lloyd's a guy that I was excited about last year. Had to miss some time. I think there's a chance Josh Jacobs just takes a small step back. Again, not disrespectful. I still top 10, but you miss 2 or 3 games, and it's real easy to not be inside the top 5.
Okay. I do have him in there. He is up a little bit further, and I'll talk about that later. You actually brought up a name that was right on the cusp just a second ago. Chuba Hubbard, as you brought, is your Oklahoma State. He was in and out of my top 10. He's right there for me. I do expect huge things from him this year.
Mm-hmm.
But my number 9, I'm going to go with Chase Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals. Through the first 5 games, he played less than 41% of snaps and still finished as running back number 10 last year. I think that he's going to be the full workhorse back for them. I believe Chase Brown is going to repeat last year just a step better because that offense is still going to have to hang points. I think he's going to catch plenty of balls out of the backfield. Former Illini guy, got to feed into him too. So I think Chase Brown is going to have an amazing year this year with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah. Sure. Chase Brown at 9. Okay. All right, fine. I was kind of torn between Chuba Hubbard and Kyron Williams were the two that were the odd men out for me. Kyron Williams was closer than Chuba Hubbard. And Devon Achane obviously was in front of both of those two. But I've got at my number 9, Brant, I've got a guy who I was really, really high on probably at this point last offseason and kind of faded him a little bit. Just because I didn't love the landing spot in Bucky Irving. But Bucky did go to Tampa, made, an instant impact and was completely fantasy relevant every week. And I think is one of those guys very similar to Achane, that doesn't have to have a ton of touches to get his relevancy there. The one reason I dropped Bucky down a little bit in my rankings is Tristan Wirfs being out for the season is going to be a big knock to that Tampa Bay offensive line. And, you worry about that because Bucky Irving did have to make some plays in the backfield to get some production last year. If that's something that happens, frequently for that Tampa Bay running back, maybe the explosive plays are a little less often. So I've got Bucky at 9. I could see a way for him to go way up, and I could see a way for him to go way down, Brant.
I actually have him outside of my top 10. I just not sure about that offense moving forward. I know they looked good last year.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that he will be probably a top 15 back. I'm not going to drop him completely out of relevancy. My number 8 guy is a guy that everyone has been down on. And I really think the new addition to his quarterback could open up some lanes for him. I have Breece Hall at number 8. I think that this RPO with Justin Fields, I already talked about his rushing upside a couple weeks ago. I think this could really open up this offense for Breece Hall. So I have him as number 8. He is a great pass catching back. I think Breece Hall is going to have another good year, and I think a lot of people are down on him and talking bad about him and how he wants to move or how they think they're going to move on. But I still think he's going to be that workhorse for the Jets this year.
Yeah, Brent, count me amongst those people that don't believe in Breece Hall this year. I have him nowhere near it. Never considered him in my top 10. I just think, listen, we've talked about this Jets offense and how we think this Jets offense is going to be this thing. And then it never is. It didn't work with Aaron Rodgers for 2 years. Justin Fields couldn't get, things together in Chicago last year. In Pittsburgh, got beat out for the starting spot by Russell Wilson. It's great. It's a lot of fun. I think the problem is Justin Fields' lack of passing ability does translate into him taking off and running a lot, which I think takes away from Breece Hall. Not going to see a lot of dump offs to Breeze, in my opinion. And I'm not going to lie. I think Braylon Allen usurps a lot of touches from him this year. I think Braylon Allen has some extreme flex play this year. I wouldn't be shocked at the end of the season if you're not talking a 50-50 split there. I just cannot get on board with Breece Hall. I just don't buy into it. We're talking about Breece Hall, a guy that 3 seasons ago, Brant, a lot of people were talking about a dynasty top 3 pick in startup drafts. And I would love to know the people who took Breece Hall in the top 3 picks in a startup that year, how they're feeling about their Breeze shares at this point, because it can't be great. Again, I don't own Breeze in a lot of places, and maybe that's why I feel the way I do. But yeah, I cannot get on board with the Breece Hall hype. I don't know if I'd even have him inside my top 15, Brent, to be honest with you. Okay. I think that's where I'm at with him.
All right.
My number 8 guy is Chase Brown. Again, for all the reasons and more that you talked about, just the lack of competition in that backfield, how effective he was last year, how good he got in the pass catching game down the stretch. Chase Brown is the type of guy who he kind of sneaks up on you in fantasy, scoring, in weeks. He's not rushing for those 75 Derrick Henry touchdowns. He's not breaking the screenplays off like Saquon Barkley does. This is a guy that's like, you're sitting at halftime and he's got 40 yards rushing on 8 attempts, 1 reception for 6 yards. And all of a sudden, with 2 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter, he's caught 5 straight passes for 50 yards, which I think he honestly did against either the Chargers or the Bills last year down the stretch. But again, I just think because of where that offense is, how vital he was to it last season, and the fact that you expect the Bengals to bounce back a little bit, I think that Chase Brown, again, this is a guy that for me, maybe next year, Brent, we're even talking about as a top 5 running back, just because I think the lack of competition is going to thrust him into a lot of really good spots. Simply put.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So my number 7 guy is got drafted. This is the rookie. I think his head coach has realized to run the ball when you need to run the ball and not try to pass it. I'm going with Ashton Genty as my number 7. I do think he finishes inside the top 10. I think he gets a heavy dose of that Raiders offense. And I do believe that it's going to run through Ashton Genty. We all know Pete wants to run the ball. This guy could end up seeing 300 plus touches this year. So I got Ashton Genty as number 7.
Yeah, and again, Brant, I think you're probably right with the Pete Carroll wanting to run the ball as long as Pete doesn't forget that. At his age, you never know what's going on in that head. I do know that this buying stock in Vegas gum shares is going to go through the roof.
Bubble yum.
I'll talk about Genty here in a bit, but I obviously am a little more bullish on you on him than you are. But yes, you'll get no disagreements on anything you said out of me when I talk about him. At my number 7 guy, I have Christian McCaffrey. Probably a little low for Christian, to be honest, but I will not lie. The injuries are scary, right? However, that San Francisco line roster is kind of in turmoil. You got Juwan Jennings now coming out saying I want an extension or to trade me. You got Ricky Pearsall hoping to avoid being shot this offseason, who is, Brant, one of your sleepers that I think, obviously the sky's the limit for him. We've got Brandon Ayuk, who is going to miss some time, it sounds like. We don't know how long. Some people are saying you could see him early in the season. Some people are saying mid-season. We'll see where that injury return comes in. You got Kittle, and that's about it. So and again, when you talk about Christian McCaffrey, he's been exciting in games he's played for San Fran. He's a fantasy cheat code still. Granted, he had the injury last year, but hopefully that doesn't happen again. I know he's kind of getting to that twilight part of his career. But I've seen the pictures and the videos of him working out with Bijan. CMC's yoked. He looks like he's in great shape. I think he's going to bounce back this year. Again, I don't know if you can count on him to be healthy for a full season. That's what keeps me from putting him into the top 10 or top 5. But I think it's almost criminal to leave Christian McCaffrey out, Brant, because as soon as you do, he makes you look bad.
Well, it's a good thing I didn't, because at my number 6, I have Christian McCaffrey for the same reason. And I honestly, with this whole wide receiver in turmoil, wouldn't be surprised to see McCaffrey line up outside as a receiver and have a different running back in. I think McCaffrey is a do-it-all guy, and I think he still is. Yes, the injuries are scary, but like you said, he is a cheat code, and that is why I have him sitting at my number 6. And honestly, I originally had him up a little bit higher, but the injuries are the one thing that keeps him sliding just a little bit.
Yeah. So for me, Brant, at number 6, this one would hurt me a little bit to have this guy this low. But the quarterback situation at this team really, really petrifies me. I've got Jonathan Taylor at 6. I would be really curious, myself included, how many people rode Jonathan Taylor's hot finish down the stretch last year into a fantasy championship. Just down the stretch, he was just unbelievable. And he had some bad games early in the season. I just think that there's a chance that if it's Daniel Jones, I think there's a chance you see a top 3 season out of Jonathan Taylor. If it's Anthony Richardson, who knows? Because Anthony Richardson runs. Anthony Richardson may take some of those goal line rushes, and he's just not a very good passer, so it's pretty easy to load the box. Not saying that Daniel Jones is anything to write home about, but I just think Jonathan Taylor is going to be the biggest part of this Colts offense that has fantasy relevancy this year. We'll see kind of how that pans out over the course of the season, but I just could not have him in my top 10. I just couldn't quite put him into my top 5, Brant.
Okay. All right. I'm going to add on to that here shortly. I do have him inside of my top 5, so I will add on to the Taylor take here shortly. At number 5, I have Josh Jacobs, who you talked about earlier. I do have him inside the top 5. A.J. Dillon's gone. He is still one of the focal points of that offense. I think it still runs through him. I know they added another receiver in their draft again this year. I feel like this is every year they add a receiver. I know they took one early this year, but I think Jacobs, and I think everything runs through him. I think he catches some balls out of the backfield, and he's going to see 20 touches a game in my mind still. I do think Lloyd is going to see the field a little bit more, and honestly, this could slide him down. This is one of those guys that I think training camp could change a lot in his ranking, as we do see how much Lloyd is active and everything else. But as for right now, I have Josh Jacobs still as a top 5 back.
Listen, I can't argue it. I just couldn't get myself to put him any higher than 10. I know he has to be in there, Brant. I don't know what it was about Josh Jacobs in garbage time and garbage situations in Vegas that I liked a lot. And I don't feel that strongly about him now in Green Bay, which is crazy because he should have more touchdown equity in this Green Bay offense than he ever did in Vegas. But I don't know, for whatever reason, Brent, I can't get him higher than 10. I do have, speaking of Vegas Raiders running backs, Ashton Jeanty at my number 5. This is one that I think writes home itself. I think next year you're talking about Jeanty as the potential number 1 overall pick in redraft leagues as far as the running back position goes. I think the explosiveness that was on display at Boise State, I think the pass catching ability, just all the things elevate Jeanty to a level that is going to be that number 1 type of running back next year. Now, again, Brant, I know we've had these conversations in person, not specifically about Jeanty, but it's like how many can't miss prospects are going to come out? How many generational talents are we going to? Every year we seem to have a couple. And, you know, the Trent Richardson stuff does worry you some, but I think we're seeing, specifically from the running back position, these guys that go early. I mean, even Etienne went in the first round back when he was drafted, and he was really good the first year or two, right? Then it kind of slowed down a little bit with Etienne. But Bijan Robinson was a stud early. Jahmyr Gibbs, stud early. Kenneth Walker, stud early. You talk about some of these young running backs and how their production is in their first season. And again, you talk about Pete Carroll and how he has that desire to run the ball. I think those things just make you put Jeanty in a spot that it is what it is. If you're wrong on it, you're going to be really wrong, but you hope you're right and you can take some victory laps.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So I'm going to have to go ahead and call myself out here. I guess A-Chain is not in my top 10 because I have 2 number 3s written down. So I guess A-Chain is not. I have it number 3, I guess 3B, because he's there number 2. So because where I'm at 4, I just went over. At 4, I have Jonathan Taylor. We've already talked about it. I think he's going to see a lot of dump offs from those quarterbacks. I can't believe I did that. That's writing all this down. I know you're sitting there laughing, knowing darn well that I was going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So at number 4, I have Jonathan Taylor. Same reason that you said it. Same thing. There's not the quarterback situation. I think there's going to be a lot of dump downs for him. The wide receiver situation isn't the greatest there in Indy. They're going to lean on him and they're going to try to ride his coattails just like us fantasy owners did into the abyss last year, into, the playoff run. And I think that's exactly what Indy's going to have to do.
Okay. At my number 4, I do have Derrick Henry. I think this is the last year you see a huge season from Derrick Henry. That Baltimore offense was really, really fun last year. Derrick Henry still at his age doing Derrick Henry things, breaking off those 70-yard touchdown rushes. And again, it's just the same thing. Derrick Henry was several times last year going into half time with 12 yards rushing. And it's like, what is going on? And then a second half comes on and he's got next thing you know, he's got 150 and 2 touchdowns. And again, eventually Father Time is undefeated. That time is coming for Derrick Henry. I just don't think it's happening this season. I think you get one more really, really, really good year from Derrick Henry before he starts to slide down that value chart a little bit, Brandon.
Okay. So I'm not sure how you want me to talk about this, but I have Derrick Henry and Gibbs both listed as 3. So that's my 3-4 right there. Or however you want to put it. I do have Gibbs just slightly below Henry just because he slid just a little bit for me because of the change of offensive coordinator. Maybe it takes a little bit of a few snaps, a few games to get in that rhythm in the season. So I do have Gibbs just slightly below Derrick Henry. But I think Derrick Henry is in the best offense for him. He was great in Tennessee, and when he moved to Baltimore, it just proved that was the best offense for him. So I do have Henry and Gibbs right there.
Okay. So I'm gonna say this. I couldn't be a homer. At my 3, I have Bijan Robinson. I think Bijan's obviously very electric. I still think there's just a lot of what ifs with this Michael Penix-led Falcons offense going into this year. Obviously, the 3-game sample size was really fun for us as Falcons fans. or for those of us that are Falcons fans, I won't lump you into that awful category. But for those of us that are Falcons fans, it was fun. But there's still a lot of relative unknowns. I don't know what it's going to be. We didn't add a lot to the offensive side of the ball. And the other thing that scares me is I think Tyler Algier is one of the more capable handcuffs in the league. And Algier is going to get regular play, right? You're never going to see a bell cow load for Bijan. Why Algier is under contract? He's too good. He runs the ball. It's a little different play style. Very physical runner for Algier. Is there a path for Bijan to be number one in fantasy football at the running back position? Absolutely. It'd be criminal not to say that. However, the two guys I have in front of him, I just could not get there this year.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to discuss Bijan just a little bit later because at my number 2, I have Saquon Barkley at my number 2, and the Jalen Hurts there. The tush push is still in play. I do think Barkley is still going to be electric. He finally found a good home that doesn't have to rely on him and actually allows the offense to open up, and that way he gets the explosive plays that he's capable of, whether it's catching the ball, running the ball. He doesn't have to see 30 touches a game to be so fantasy relevant. I have Saquon at number 2. I think this is a great fit for him. And Father Time, once again, will probably sneak up on him eventually, but this is a good offense, good offensive line they have. Yes, the offensive line is downgraded just a little bit this year, but I still think they're going to put a very capable line in order to keep him at number 2.
Yeah, I got him number 2 as well, Brant, and it's very simple for me. It's really, really hard to repeat as that number 1 overall running back. I don't know when the last time we had one was, but it's been some time ago. There's just too many factors, too many things that happen. The tush push is there. You got 2 really good wide receivers in AJ Brown and Devonta Smith that are going to need touches. You just never know, right? And hey, the scariest part, they added AJ Dillon this offseason. Not really. Again, it's just you rarely see a running back repeat. And so just for that reason, I'm putting him at 2. It could easily have been number 1 for me. You just don't see it happen. So trying to stay with the times, Brant.
That's one of the reasons I put this guy as number 1. I put Bijan Robinson as my number 1 running back. Yes, I do think Algier is going to have play, but I think Michael Penix opens that offense up a little bit more with his high-powered arm. You stack the box, he's going to go over the top. We've seen it in Washington. He will throw it over the top to Drake London, maybe Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney. You guys have the weapons, and now I believe in your quarterback. I really do believe in the arm strength, and I think you're going to still see some dump-offs, but I think you're going to see a lot more explosive plays out of Bijan Robinson as he touches the ball. I think you're going to see a lot of plays where he's breaking off 30, 40-yard runs and moving himself into that number 1 spot this year. So I'll be the homer for you, bud, because you know I love your quarterback. So I do believe Bijan Robinson is the number 1 running back this year.
Hey, and again, I hope you're right, Brant, because if that happens, then we probably have a darn good year as a team. But again, I think this, for me, my top 3 could have been interchanged anyway, and I'd have been just fine with it. I am a little disappointed my top 3 is not the same as your top 3, but I guess it kind of was because you cheated and had 4 players in your top 3. But of course, the name I
was eating when I was writing it down.
So there's also food stains on the paper. Listen,
I licked those up.
I've got Jahmyr Gibbs at my 1 spot, Brant. I think Jahmyr has shown enough and done enough to get himself into this conversation. The change in the offensive coordinator, sure, that does potentially become worrisome. Maybe I would think anybody who's smart enough to get a job as an offensive coordinator in the NFL, not named Arthur Smith, because he's not smart enough to do it, leans on their best players, gets their best players the ball in their hands. And this Detroit Lions team is still going to play with that Dan Campbell, head smacking mentality of, just run it down your throats, put it away, just do all the things that a good football team does. I think they're going to be a very well-coached team. And again, that you talk about a good offensive line. Detroit's offensive line is right there. Running behind Penei Sewell is a really, really good problem to have for a running back. And again, yes, the argument could be made here the same way I did against Bijan with Algier. David Montgomery's still back there, right? So that does play a part. But I think when you talk about how dynamic of a player Jahmyr Gibbs is, for me, I just think you talk about 70-yard touchdown plays. You talk about taking a screen for a touchdown. You talk about all those things, broken plays, and turning them into positive gains. I think Jahmyr Gibbs embodies that. I don't know as though any of us thought Jahmyr Gibbs was going to be this good coming out of Alabama, because he really wasn't that at Alabama. He wasn't that at Georgia Tech for that matter. But he is that for the Detroit Lions. Again, I wouldn't be shocked if Bijan was the one. I wouldn't be shocked if Saquon was. I wouldn't be shocked if Jahmyr was. For me, this was an interchangeable one. I just think personally, if I had to put some kind of monetary number on it, and risk some kind of stake in this, I'm planting a flag in Jahmyr. I just think the pass catching, the rushing upside, the offensive line, the talent around him is too darn good for me not to have it number one.
Yeah, Detroit obviously thought this is what it was as they shifted Swift off the year they drafted him, and I believe they even traded up to go get him. So obviously they saw everything that they want out of him. Once again, your reason for Bijan was Algier. Mine is for Gibbs is also Montgomery. He is, because we'll talk about this later down the road, I'm sure, when we talk about handcuffs, which one is more valuable to own, because, as you get later in your drafts, you do got to talk about that. But yeah, those top 3/4 in mine are very interchangeable, because I think Derrick Henry could easily finish as the number one.
I have Derrick Henry at my real number 4, so I'm still okay with that as well. He was right there for me as well. So
yeah. So
one real quick thing I want to talk about before we jump off of here. Paul did comment and say he took Breece Hall and he's still a believer in him. He's going to the 4th year of his rookie contract, and he's going to want a future contract, whether it's with the Jets or another team next year. I think that's very true. You could see Breece have a big year. A lot of times these players play really well in contract years. I'm fairly certain the Jets did not pick up Breece Hall's 5th-year option. So, yeah, I mean, anything's possible. It wouldn't shock me at all. Actually, Breece Hall was a 2nd-round pick, was he not? I don't remember. Either way, he's not under contract next year with the Jets, and at least not at this point. Things could change, obviously. But again, there's been changeover in the head coaching department. There's been change in the general manager department. He was a 2nd-round pick, so there was no 5th-year option. There's no ties to the regime that's in place now of Aaron Glenn and that to Breeze. There's also none to Braylon Allen, so that argument goes both ways. But I personally, I just can't get on the Breeze train.
Okay, all right. I think this is going to be a great year for him. I am on that. I am in agreement with you, Paul. And I don't see him in a Jets uniform next year. I'm not sure where I see him. Honestly, Dallas is where I thought I would see him this year, but it never went through. Mm-hmm. Instead, they got Pickens.
Great trade-off for the Cowboys. This is why they don't win playoff games.
That's right. I think that about does it for us. So, as always, stay hungry
and stay fat, my friends.